All right, we'll call the meeting to order. It looks like we've got everybody, so that's a quorum. And we need to approve the agenda first, so can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, none opposed, any opposed? Okay, none, unanimous, thank you. All right, looks like we're gonna start with, closed session, so can we have a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
I second the motion.
Cindy,
And I get to read it, right?
will you, yes, ma'am, if you don't mind.
Nope, gotcha. The Pender County Board of Education will enter closed session subject to advice from the attorney pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1 and A6 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under General Statute 115C-319. The board will also go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 133-318.11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider confidential student matters as provided in North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A1 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 USC 1232G and North Carolina General Statute 115C-402.
And I second the motion.
All right, motion's been made, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a second, all in favor say aye.
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 All in favor say aye. Okay, unanimous, thank you. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order in open session, and we need to amend the agenda, it looks like, to add, item 5 under action about the, school board meeting schedule. So, can we have a motion to amend the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we amend the agenda to add item number 5, to amend the date for the June Board of Education meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, everybody, thank you. All right, under information, we have number 1 is COVID-19 matters by Brandon. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, thank you so much. Happy to be here with you today. I am obviously not Richard Schwartz, but a couple of items to review. First and foremost, that the liability waiver that the board has asked for regarding employees in work will be shared in short order. Additionally, we are monitoring guidance regarding the reopening of schools, and we'll get the district information as guidance is put out by both the CDC and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, along with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So as we get additional information, we will be passing it along with our advice based on the most recent guidance. So outside that, those are the only 2 matters I have to discuss with the board, and thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Brandon. So, moving on to the action part of the agenda. The first item is graduations. Dr. Hill and Alex.
Yes, sir. We submitted to the board in the packet the kind of what I call the meat of the plan. I mean, there's lots of little details we're going to have to work out as we go through this, as it's never been done. So basically, we would hope that the board would look through this, and we recommend approving the plans that each school has developed. We met as a unit twice, and then we allowed the schools to go back and kind of develop their own individual plans. And we actually had the principals in the audience today for any specific questions, but again, a lot of the little details haven't been worked out yet, but this is really enough. I think the board could say we feel like you're moving in the right direction or not, and go ahead and let them finish up, as time is really becoming an issue to try to get this into June 13th. So are there any questions specifically or anything we could answer for the board on this?
All right, anyone got questions for Dr. Hill?
And just to be clear, we are going to have
No questions for Dr. Hill? Anyone?
Well, just
Yep.
a comment.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
That's all right. We are going to have another group meeting, another graduation meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
The working group is going to meet
Alex.
again on Monday.
Monday at 3 p.m.
Monday at 3, okay? And Monday at 3 is when we're going to work through a lot of details on this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good.
Which will answer a lot of specific questions
Yes.
that have come at us from
Yes.
community and others.
Yes.
All right.
So what could possibly change for that meeting?
Well, there's some questions about marshals
Yep.
being allowed in, and more specifically, if we allow the marshals in, how many tickets would we possibly be able to give them? We'd have to look at space, or even if we're going to allow the marshals in. Like I said, there's going to be some discussion about that. Is that something you'd like to talk about now, Mr. George?
I just know if we approve this plan, these have got set numbers in these plans, and if we approve them, that's what we approve. If there's any changes, far as the number of individuals that graduates can bring, that can't happen after this vote.
Well, I guess what the board should indicate is you're saying whatever we do, we should not reduce the number of people that graduates can bring. Is that what I understand?
If we're voting on this plan as it's presented tonight, this plan has numbers assigned to each school, number of guests they can bring. If the things we're gonna talk about at the next meeting changes that, where we have to limit those numbers, then we can't we can't change the number once we voted on this.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and have discussion about it then.
Well, I would just say, you know, basically, the going, you know, we just understand that the numbers cannot be reduced as they are in the plan for whatever we talk about. Because,
Reduced.
right.
Okay,
So, I mean, that would be something we just put in motion, that we would not reduce the number in this current plan of graduate attendees by family members.
I can work with that, yes.
Mr. George, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with either way. I just want to make sure for advertising that what we're doing, we need to make sure that the numbers that we have tonight aren't going to change after the next council meeting or committee meeting.
Yeah, because people are ready to make plans.
Right,
Right, the numbers will not be reduced.
right, no.
Dr. Real, I've got a quick question, if I may. One of the plan for Topsail High School mentions that guests will be required to enter and sit together as a group. A question I have is whether or not that group assumes that those individuals are of the same household or family. I think that presumption is being made, but I'd recommend adding that as clarifying language.
Why would it matter?
We can't ask.
6 guests is 6 guests. Or 4 guests is 4 guests, or 16 guests is 16 guests.
Well, based on the executive order, the recommended social distancing guidelines are required for these events, and the 6 feet apart, as it says in the order, maintain at least 6 feet social distance from other individuals with the exception of family or household members. So, that's why I recommend the language.
Be 6 feet away from each other, right?
Yeah, family or same household.
All right.
Well, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, let's talk this through. So, I thought, all right, Brandon, maybe it's just me, but I thought we couldn't ask, I thought it was just a group, and we couldn't ask the question if they're in the same household. That if they say they are, they say they are.
You can, yeah, I mean, they say they are. You can ask them the question. It's your event. You can ask them anything you want. But with the exception from the prohibition on social gathering, it says that people must follow the recommendations to promote social distancing and reduce transmission as much as possible. So my idea is, that's why I'm making this recommendation. Now, board, you choose to do whatever you want, but the idea that people can be from different households together, it kind of defeats the social distancing to a degree.
sanitation part of the agenda, so
So,
it's something that we need to vote on, we can do that or discuss it or whatever everybody wants to do.
well, so are you asking us to put this specific language in what we release to the public? That if they come, they need to be in the same family or household? If they're gonna be within that
Well, if
group?
they're gonna sit, if a guest is being required to sit together, they need to be of the same household or family. So, if you're a guest and you're of two different households, you would sit separately would be the thought. Once again, you can do whatever you want, but that's my recommendation.
Right, that wording is not in the executive order, correct, Brandon, under the mass gathering? It doesn't say anything about family members, correct?
You know, it says family or household members is what the executive order says.
In the mass gathering.
It says, the mass gathering portion references back the recommendations to promote social distancing and reduce transmission. And that piece is in section 3 of the order. The prohibition and the exception to the prohibition on mass gatherings is in section 7.
All right, but it also says that the prohibition on mass gatherings also does not apply to educational institutions or government operations.
That is correct. But then you go to the subsection B.
Okay.
And it says, however, in those settings, people must follow the recommendations to promote social distancing and to reduce transmission as much as possible. The idea being that if you're going to hold a mass gathering, you try to promote social distancing as much as possible.
But that's what we're doing with each group, right?
Right, and and I guess that's my point, is if you're promoting social distancing, the social distancing requirement that's listed, or recommendation that's listed in the order, says maintain at least 6 feet social distancing from other individuals with the exception of household or family or household members.
Household or family members.
Yeah, family or household members.
I guess my concern is that when you say it has to be in the same household, well, my parents might not live in the same household with me, but they are the grandparents, so that's the or.
Yeah, that's why it's family or household members.
Right.
Okay. Topsail High, how many tickets are they getting per person?
But they are, all these are recommendations, none of it is the must and shalls, correct?
Exactly. So the wording is really funny because it says must to the extent possible. So that's weird. It's weird wording. However, in those settings, people must follow the recommendations that promote social distancing and reduce transmission as much as possible. So it's qualified. Once again, that's the reason I'm making a suggestion. You guys can do whatever you want. I think legally, as much as possible, gives you wiggle room. But the must part is the part that I'm looking at and I'm saying, okay, you know, what exactly do we look at that and say?
But that's a must and not a shall.
Yes. Well, and it's must, and then it's followed by as much as possible. So
I'm fine with what we have. I think it's a good plan.
Okay,
I'm just not,
okay.
I think our schools will do everything they can to make sure it's done the right way. They've worked really, really hard on this, and
Mm-hmm.
I
All
have
right.
to agree. I mean, quite honestly, I think that we're gonna put every effort into keeping everyone safe for this graduation, and I think that, I mean, and I appreciate the thought about liability and everything with this, Brandon, but I think for right now, to go back and say it's just, family or those in the home would be, it would just be muddying the waters, just in my opinion. And like I said, I can appreciate the effort for liability, but, we've already got some folks out there that I'm not, you know, I wanna make sure that everybody understands everything about this graduation. And if we go back now and change the verbiage, I'm afraid that it's gonna lead to a lot of confusion, and I don't want that. So I say let's keep it the same.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think
That is
we're,
yeah.
I think we're ready for a vote, Mr. Chairman.
All right, someone want to make a motion? No, well, first of all, are there any more questions before we vote at all? All right, if there are no questions, so
hold
someone
on,
want to make a motion?
Are we good?
yeah, we're good, we're good. I just asked Dr. Hill to make sure if something is added for for these graduations that's been a concern in the community, if they are allowed to be there, then, I just didn't want us voting on this and then we have to go back and change something, but we're good.
If we change anything on Monday, Dr. Hill will send out something letting the board know that if we've changed numbers
Okay,
or
so-
anything, right, Dr. Hill?
And the numbers aren't going down.
Nope, numbers are not going down.
Sorry.
Well, and you know, I recommend that being in the motion.
So you want a motion to just direct that the numbers not go down, basically, correct?
Well, my recommendation would be that you approve the plans as presented with a specific understanding that any,
Stipulation.
right, exactly.
You got it.
Okay, well, if you need a vote on it then does someone want to make that motion?
Yeah, Ms. Burns is working on she's writing right now.
Writing the verbiage. Okay, well, we'll just
Okay,
go ahead.
got you.
Let's see, I make a motion that we approve the graduation plan as presented, with, oh goodness, with the numbers remaining the same or not being, with the numbers not being reduced. How would I say that, Brandon?
With the number of attendees remaining.
With the number of guests allocated for each graduate to not be reduced.
Okay, with the number of guests allocated for each graduate to not be reduced. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous, thank you. Next item, calendar revisions for the 2020 to 21 school year. Dr. Hill.
Yes, sir, I refer.
Dr. Blumenreich, I guess, I'm sorry.
There you go. Keep me to the punch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Up for action is a recommendation for the board to adopt approval of the traditional calendar revisions that we currently have. Also of note with that is for Pender to adopt a traditional calendar for 1 year, then transitioning back to year-round schedule for the 21-22 school year, and also approval of the Pender Early College calendar revision. Any questions?
All right, is there any discussion on this? I have one question myself. So the community has been polled about this, is Is that correct, Dr. Hill? Dr. Rubenwright, either one?
Yes, so, we've had, an extensive round of conversations and Google Forms out to our calendar committee. And of course, with Pender Lee, it originally passed muster with their school improvement team, who are the most ardent of the year-round supporters. And they feel for delivery of instruction, goods and services, for, equitability, it's appropriate for, the traditional calendar, as stipulated in Session Law 2020-3 to be implemented for this year.
Okay. All right, are there any additional questions?
So we're gonna get all this
Okay,
information.
hearing none, so we need a motion to, go ahead, I'm sorry, Cindy.
That's okay, I just have one question. So, once this is a done deal, we're gonna let all the parents know, get it out to the community that this is what's getting ready to happen, and let them do a real good job of that, so.
And may I also add, though, the additional calendar is dictated by Session Law 2020-3. I mean, they told us when we're gonna start and when we're
Right,
going
it
in
did.
by.
Mhm.
So,
It definitely will help. I mean, with this coming
Okay.
year, it's gonna be a difficult year, so this is, honestly, this will be a true asset, and I just thank the school, you know, for actually opening it up and considering it. But, it will actually allow everybody to focus all the resources, you know, as a laser focus, not like this. But actually a tremendous asset for the school to do that.
Okay. All right, any more questions or comments?
I make a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Okay, we've got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and I think there are no opposed, is that correct? Do we have any opposed? Okay, unanimous, thank you. All right, the, facility rental agreements. Mr. LaFawn.
Good afternoon, board members. With the reopening of our facilities to our renters and folks who want to use them, in light of the COVID, quarantine or situation that we have, I asked, our custodial contractor, ABM, to give us an evaluation to go through and, make our facilities safe for our students, after they've been rented. And, schedule that was immediately presented to you was for Topsail High School, and Renovation Church. And I've asked our contractor, Mr. Griffith, to come and answer any specific questions you might have.
Also, Mr. Chairman, you may want, there's been based on a motion at the last meeting that was approved, Mr. Schwartz and, his team of lawyers have put together some wording that was included in the packet. And, what you're getting ready to hear from, ABM is basically, we asked for them for an example, because we knew that, Renovation Church was our first, you know, person that was, or a group that was trying to rent. So we said, what would this look like, you know, if we were to do that? So he did a projected sample to discuss here today about any additional fees or anything like that. So that's how we got to where we're at for this discussion. So,
Okay.
Mr. McPherson, if you want to talk a little bit
Okay.
about the, do you want to talk a little bit about the added language? And then we can, have the example talked about.
Absolutely. The additional language is meant to protect the board as much as possible. It was designed for any renter who is, using your facility. As I believe Mr. George mentioned at your last board meeting, any proposed increase in your fees has to be approved by the board. I believe one of the issues that's apparent here is you have one estimate for one facility with the understanding that you rent lots of different facilities other than Topsail's, gymnasium, cafeteria, an auxiliary gym. So, at the time, as you receive requests for those facilities, those additional estimates would need to come back before the board for their approval, as part of a revised fee schedule. So, the only thought here is if the board, supports the idea of passing either all or part of the cost on to your renter for, the sanitizing of your facility after their use. So, that's, I'll take any questions about the language as presented. That's it in a nutshell.
Brandon, I have a question about the language.
Yes, sir.
The policy is written currently. It does all those same things, except without all the buzzwords, is that correct?
Yes, sir, and what it does more than anything, it draws specific attention to, the COVID-19 piece of it. So, you can't prevent anybody from suing you, but what you can prevent is them from, thinking that it was a good idea by being able to point to something that they signed themselves and understand that in this particular set of circumstances, you yourself, as the renter, have signed something that says, hey, we assume the risk, for COVID specifically. So, there's, I think in a lot of ways now, the individual release and waiver of liability, that doesn't appear in any of your board policies. That's a new concept that's sort of sprang up in response to COVID-19, which is individual, persons who are coming to your facility or waiving any rights that they have. Now, there's a very strong argument that they have, or you as a state entity who's allowing people to use your facility, you have immunity under state law. But in the event someone makes a more creative claim, this waiver could protect you from those additional claims. And it's, sort of a more direct situation where, listen and understand the situation, you are assuming the risk. So.
Now about the cleaning fees, can he give us just an overview of what, it seems excessive, 34 man hours, seems excessive. Can Seth give us an overview?
Absolutely,
And
yes,
then
sir.
can we discuss, is there
He's on his way to the
options
podium now.
for us?
Good afternoon, board members. What we're specifically looking at is an increase in man hours. So currently we clean, we disinfect bathrooms, touch points, etc. However, to fully clean everything per se, talking about a wipe down of every chair, a spray and wipe down of every chair, every bleacher, every surface, scrubbing the floor, and an increased frequency on the bathrooms as well. So it is, the quote that you have is an estimate, and ABM will only bill for what is actually used in man hours. We will not, if we use less man hours than that, I am not going to bill, or ABM will not bill that. And it is going to be a learning process. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. We haven't wiped down every service before we've hung the chairs back up ever. It's new. My goal is to have it done in less than that. However, I've learned that it's better to underpromise and overdeliver. And I think it could take that. I hope it doesn't. But I really am secure knowing that that number is a good number, and it will not exceed that. So I'd be happy to take any questions as far as cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, which is all different. I'll go over brief. Some of you may know, some of you not. Cleaning is simply removing dirt from the surface, visible dirt from the surface, sweeping, etc. Sanitizing is removing bacteria, for the most part. And then disinfecting is rendering non-active or killing any viruses, bacteria, etc. The cleaner we use is called alpha HB. It's hydrogen peroxide based, and it is a cleaner and disinfector all over. So it does it all. And simply what we're really looking at is the amount of man hours to wipe down every service to make sure on Monday morning that gymnasium, that auditorium, that cafeteria is ready for students and covered. Any questions, please?
How many people?
Just knowing the setup that Innovation Church has, they do their own chairs, they have their own chairs, they don't use the bleachers, they're already removed out of the equation or pushed back.
So, correct,
Do we
however,
account for
droplets,
their,
go ahead.
do we account for what they do personally, I mean, that what they don't touch, or are we just accounting for everything in there?
We really need to account for everything in there because of the way droplets travel. And as far as the bleachers, they do stay pushed back. We would wipe the external surfaces that are in there. Chairs, we're gonna have to work with them. They'd have to be wiped down before they're put up. We may end up needing to put them up for them. But for outside groups, we need to remove the liability of cleaning and keep it on us and the contractor. Make sure everything's safe. And as far as things that are out of the equation, when people are in the room talking, singing, droplets are spread. So we need to wipe every surface and do a floor clean as well with a scrub machine.
Okay, so we're looking at 18 man hours,
Correct.
roughly. How many people do you usually have in there doing this work, and how long? I know it's 18 man hours. How long?
Currently, right now, we have two people split it.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it's actually, I was corrected from Valerie, it's 17 hours because they overlap by one. They go in at 5 in the morning and then overlap. I think they're there till 9 in the night cleaning. So we're looking at roughly doubling and adding, doubling the man hours and probably adding 2 additional custodians simply to come in after and wipe. And as I said, it's going to be a learning curve. I think we all know that once you've done something a couple times, it becomes more efficient and you find better ways to do things. In no way is ABM going to hold the county or the county's customer at that point to more than what the hours were used. And this will be supervised by myself or one of my managers.
Okay, the only question I really had was that we were looking at 16 hours for a full clean and 18 hours for a full disinfection.
Correct.
And I was just wondering, were there any of those steps that, since you said that there was already cleaning, disinfecting in one action, so is there any way that we could trim, basically what I'm asking, do you have to clean before you disinfect, or
No.
can you do it all together?
It's a one step.
Okay,
Cleaning, disinfectant. So, for example, we used to sweep and spot mop. Now we're gonna do a full floor clean with the disinfecting machine. But there's several aspects that we're gonna learn from and timing on it, and we'll be working with the church as well, because we will have to put up the chairs for them. Simple as that. If we want to be sure, we have to do it. We have to be there to see it.
do they store the chairs there?
They stay at top. Anything else?
They don't store at Topsail, they trailer them, correct?
Oh, the audience chairs, yes. They unload. Oh, so as far as the cleaning of the chairs? Okay. and we would just have to do the surfaces. I assumed that they were the fold-up chairs that we would use on site. I thought that's what we were using.
I think what,
So they break everything except for the gym floor cover that goes down over the hardwood floors,
I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it,
and they
please?
take it all.
he said they remove everything but the gym floor cover. Is that correct, Mr. George?
Yes.
So if they take the chairs with them, I think is his question, if they leave with them on their way out,
That would cut the time drastically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can read
That's
one.
why I asked earlier if you could sort them.
We didn't hear you.
So that's why I asked earlier if we consulted with them on what they actually do and what of ours they use.
We consulted with the church.
yeah, I think so.
I mean, as far as I knew, I thought we used the metal fold-ups that we had used at one point. And
They have black screen chairs now, is that correct?
they have moved them all
Yeah.
in there? Okay. Then that's not going to be, I can cut that quote drastically if we're not wiping down their equipment. It's really just the surfaces in there then and the frequency increase, and I can see it cutting by more than half. Absolutely.
Cause they bring a big trailer in, right, Brad?
They bring several big trailers in.
Yeah, and they unload and then they load everything right back up. Yeah, that's why I was just very, very
Correct.
concerned. 'Cause
Okay,
that's-
okay.
Hey, board, can I make a recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Let's consider tabling this item to give, Seth an opportunity to reevaluate his quote, move to the topic about, board meetings, and then come back to it and finish this discussion, because it sounds like his number is gonna change drastically, which is something that I think would benefit the board. If there are differing opinions on it, I just feel like it may behoove you, so.
Great idea.
I agree.
All right, but we need to have a vote to table it, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Will that work for you?
Absolutely.
All right, do we have a motion to
Yeah,
table
15
this then
minutes to sit
until
down and
next time?
You don't have to go out, just do what you
Make a
gotta do.
motion to table the, quote that was just given.
Oh, no, table the item, Mr. Smith.
Well, okay, make a motion to table the item of, the cleaning.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, sounds like that's everyone. Okay. And we had item 5, we need to take care of item 5 as well. Dr. Hill, I think that was you.
Yes, sir. Basically, we were, discussing with the board that, currently we have scheduled for June the 6th for the next board meeting. We do, have a hearing that we have to take place,
You're not.
I'm sorry, that's the graduation day, I'm sorry, my brain's got a lot going on. So June 9th is the next board meeting, so also we have a hearing we have to take place, by June 10th. It was suggested that we move the board meeting back due to all those dates and things that are happening that week. That's a very, very busy week for everybody. There has been a suggestion we move it back to the following Tuesday, which would require us to have a 2-panel board hearing to be made a appointment between now and then, which we have 2 volunteers on the board who said they would do that. So I think at this time, we need to discuss whether the board would entertain meeting on, which would make that what? The 16th? And then what time on the 16th?
Morning?
We can still do a call in if that's, I know we've got 2 situations, PM and AM. We're open for discussion, Mr. Chairman. I think the 16th, I think, is up, and, then what time, AM hours or PM hours?
Oh, I'm up, either.
Well, so if you want to schedule the hearing, I think the two that have, volunteered for it, that we should leave that up to them.
Yes, sir.
And, well, what do y'all think?
As far as the 16th, I think that's the question then. Yes, sir.
We're talking about the board meeting, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts?
We'll do normal time.
Can't we just do normal time?
Let's do normal time.
Okay. I'm good with whatever, so anybody that's got plans or, y'all tell me what you want. I mean, I'm good for anything.
Normal's fine.
So you wanna do normal time on the 16th, right?
Ken, how's that for you?
That's fine.
Now, Mr. Chairman, you had made a request that that possibly be held at Topsail High School. Is that still the opportune?
Well, that's the next thing. We had our last at Pender, and, I like to try to keep things balanced and give people an opportunity if they'd like to come, and, but if y'all can make the technology work, I mean, I'd like to have it there, but as long as everyone else here is okay with it. I mean, I'm good at either place, so. What does everybody think on having it at Topsail for next time?
Fine with me. Works for me.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
Okay, well then, everybody's okay with it. Let's, as long as, y'all can get the technology part worked out, that's fine. Is, staff okay with that?
Yes, sir. I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
So we need,
you need a motion.
we got a vote to,
That's right.
okay, so the motion needs to be to have the meeting at the, how specific does it need to be, Brandon?
You need to vote to, revise your regular meeting schedule, calendar, to, change the date to June 16th, 2020, and location from the Resource Center to Topsail High School.
Okay. All right, does anyone want to make that motion?
I make a motion that we, revise the June, Board of Education meeting date from, June 9th to June 16th with, a change in venue to Topsail High.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a
Second.
second? All right, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, are there any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, comments from board members. I'll start off,
No, wait,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
appreciate everyone's work, and
wait a minute.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
you need to revisit item number 4 before you move on to board comments would be my recommendation. Before you leave action items
okay,
altogether.
well, we can do that, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just,
Look past me, I'm sorry.
no, just fine. You're great. I just wanted to get back to that one.
All right, well, we're back to item 4 then, so y'all go ahead and present more.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Griffith has revised his numbers based on, Renovation Church removing their chairs from the building and taking them with them. In speaking to Seth, I did tell him that I wanted a quote that included wiping down every single chair and surface within the building, so he did base the quote on what I told him. So, but he has revised the number for you.
All right,
Mr. Chairperson.
go ahead with it if you have the number.
I'm looking at a reduction by 10 hours. So we were quoting 333 for the disinfection, and now we're looking at about 148 for the additional services. An 8-hour, 2 4-hour people coming in afterwards, as opposed to 18 hours. That makes a very large difference. Questions?
All right, thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Anyone have any more questions about this, or? Go ahead.
Give those figures again,
Okay.
please, sir.
I thought I heard a yes. Were there more questions about this?
We're getting the figures
vote?
again. We're asking for the figures one more time, sorry.
So we're looking at the labor rate of 1850,
Okay, all right, I must have missed that part, I'm sorry.
and we're switching from what we had set 18 hours for the after cleaning to go to 8 hours.
Yep.
Okay.
So, Seth, if you would just tell us the overall figure and the number of hours again, just so everyone's really clear on exactly what the revised cost would be.
Okay. Does everybody have the quote or looking at it right now? We're looking at the normal, which is the 16 hours, at 1850, which is the 296, and that's what's always been charged. And the additional now is going to be an additional 8 total hours at 1850, which is 148. So the total charge is 444. And of course, that's still.
So the total,
Go ahead.
you said the total new charge would be $144?
No, $444, and that's subject to be lower depending on what we actually work in labor to get that job done.
Gotcha.
The original charge and what we've been charging is $296.
So it's an additional 148.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, you got the numbers you need now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. All right, does anyone have any additional questions about this item?
The only additional question or comment I have is, this is a policy revision and a fee schedule change that are both together. Is there a way to vote on those separately?
That's right, we probably need to vote on them separately.
Well, we're not looking for an, I'm sorry, if I could maybe help clarify, I think the sanitation costs, the way it reads is, if you look at page 2, that's why we gave 2, we gave a highlighted version, because I asked them to pull out exactly what they changed. And it says, to prevent the transmission of communicable diseases such as, but not limited to COVID-19, coronavirus, the user shall pay for the additional hours required to clean. So what that does is keep us from having to set a fee for every time, because whatever event they're doing changes. So we gave you the example quote to give you an idea of what a normal day would look like for a church. But if they decided to hold something longer that day, then that fee would ebbs and flows, because it's based on an hourly fee every how long they need to be there. It may, like Seth said, it may be reduced too. If they have a short session, it may be cheaper than that. We don't have set fees, I guess is what I'm saying. So what you're agreeing to is that the hours you're just agreeing to the agreement. What ABM is showing you is what that would look like in real life. What normal event, or just at every week rental. So
Our fee schedule, if you look at our fee schedule down a little ways, our fee schedule shows our custodial rate of $25 an hour. so it doesn't match what is on. So either way, we gotta change one of the two.
Mr. George, our Pender County Schools charges $25 an hour for custodial services. That is $18.50 for ABM and $6.50 because they use our paper towels, our all of our materials, ancillary materials. So that is to replace that.
Well, but it kind of needs to match without changing the policy. So.
We're only saying in the policy that there may be additional hours, that's all that's, and that's actually written in parentheses beside, the custodial fees. Under the blue section, indoor spaces, it says custodial fees, custodial services are required to be on site at all times. So some of this is just them being there, opening the place and things like that, which the user is on site at the user's expense. Staffing levels are determined based on the type and duration of the event. So it ebbs and flows over what they're doing. If we try to set fees, we'll have to set 1,000 fees because we'd have to look at every kind of event that would possibly take place. And each one of them may actually have to change too. So even if it's an event that somebody holds, but they hold a different type of event the next week, you'd have to take a vote every time. But the way this was set up, whenever it was set up, was actually thought through well. Looks like you guys or whoever spent some time on it. So the only thing the policy revisions are doing are saying it may take longer to clean these places. And what ABM presented you today is what that would look like in real time, as an example.
Okay. I was wondering, but we've got other people that want to use facilities is what I'm thinking about.
Right, well, this would match them too. I mean, so they would.
Different, like dance studios or places like that. If
we're not changing any hours, we're just changing the length of hours is what's happening.
Okay. Mr. George, are you okay with that, or?
I'm fine with that. I just know we clarified $100 was gonna be the increase to renovate your church, and that's gonna be more than that, with that, the $25 hour rate.
Right. Okay. Okay. Any more, questions or comments about it? All right, well, if you're ready for a vote, then, Brandon, what specifically, how do you need this voted on?
So the recommendation you've received is to approve the facilities use contracts agreements as revised. That's the recommendation. So, I see that as what you need to approve is the agreement as to form is what you're authorizing the district to use.
Right. Okay.
Dr. Hill or Mr. LaFont, let me know if your opinion differs on that, but I believe that's what your administration wants you to do.
Yeah, I think we're straight.
Okay.
That's what they're asking for.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, so that's the motion.
All right, thank you. Does someone want to make that motion? Anyone want to make that motion?
I make a motion that we approve the contract use agreement for, how would I say that, Brandon, for rental, for facility use.
The new facilities use contract agreement with the revisions recommended by the administration.
Thank you. I make that motion.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second? Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. All right, Mr. Smith seconds. All in favor say aye.
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 I don't like it. Is that right?
I've heard one aye.
All in favor, say aye. All right, are there any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's, one opposed to 3 in favor. Did I hear that correctly?
I heard Mr. Smith as an aye, and I heard Mr. George and Ms. Fontana as a no.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out
Oh, I said aye, Brandon.
Ms. Burns. Okay. Ms. Burns. Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
We have a tie.
Okay, I'm just recording here. So that was, Ms. Fontana and Mr. George,
No.
or nay?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Smith and Ms. Burns.
And Mr. Smith and Ms. Burns were in favor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna break the tie then with a nay.
Okay. Charles, no.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead,
Mr.
Brad,
George,
sorry.
Mr. George, Mr. George.
I would like to make a motion to approve this with the sanitation costs, revisement to the policy, and delete the other, additions.
Okay, so,
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Fontana seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute, could you say that
Aye.
one more
Say
time?
that again.
'Cause I wasn't hearing Mr. George very well.
I wanna make sure that I'm clear on Mr. George's motion really quickly.
Okay.
The motion is to, keep the sanitation cost portion of the agreement and to not include the liability release and assumption of risk portion or the individual release waiver of liability and indemnity agreement. Is that correct, Mr. Wilson?
The current policy already has the liability release and assumption of risk without all the buzzwords.
Okay, and by extension, you were also eliminating the individual waiver document.
That is correct.
Okay, so the first document, the individual waiver, is gone, according to the motion, along with, the 2 paragraphs highlighted in yellow. Just so the board's clear on what is being proposed. Mr. George, let me know if I'm getting it wrong.
That is correct on my end.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. We have a motion and a second. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and all opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right. Was that?
Hold on, because quite honestly, I'm still a little bit on the fence on this one, I must admit. I guess, Mr. George, what is the difference?
Let's discuss it some more then, and we can go back and vote. Is that okay with everybody?
Please. So what exactly is the difference between what we've been shown and what the original, policy is? Because I haven't had an opportunity to read that original policy.
Okay. I'm pulling up the policy to read it to you.
Oh, that's okay, you can take that. Thank you. I'm going to have to vote nay on that then.
Okay, I was gonna point to subsection F of the policy, Mr. George, I believe is what you're referencing, the indemnity, damages, and liability insurance portion of the policy that addresses indemnification, holding harmless, all negligent action claims.
All right, is that, so, are we more clear on that now?
So,
Indeed I
Ms.
am,
Burns, so
my
you're okay with that way
reasoning,
now?
my
With
reasoning
voting?
for this is, well, I wanted to say something first. My reasoning on this is I went back and I looked at it, and, Dr. Hill was showing it to me, and I believe that, that verbiage that's in there is basically protected. I mean, we are in a new age right now with COVID-19. And it's just my thought that any additional liability that Pender County Schools can take, I believe we should. And it's already written in there. And for that reason, I don't want that removed.
Okay. All right. So we had a motion and a second, and let me make sure I've got it down right here. So we voted, Ms. Fontana and Mr. George, you were in favor, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Smith, you were nay, correct? And Ms. Burns, you're going to vote nay as well, correct?
I am.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I'm going to break the tie with a yay, and I guess that part is over. Do we have anybody got any more questions before we move on here? Because the only one that I have, I'm worried about the other places that went from us as well. So let me make sure I've got a clear understanding about how we're going to handle that when those requests are made. Can you talk about that, Brandon?
okay, so, my understanding currently is that the board has not authorized the rental of facilities to anyone except for Renovation Church and Parks and Rec as of now. If that has changed, please let me know. But my understanding is the rental use of your facilities has only been open to those two entities so far.
I thought we were wide open on that. I thought we were,
Are you guys wide open? Am I incorrect on that? I'd love to be incorrect.
I might not be phrasing it the right way, but I thought we were good to go. Did I miss that, other board members?
That's what I thought too. We can go back and look, but I believe when you voted to open up rentals, just open up rentals.
I thought we did also.
Yes,
Oh,
the previous meeting addressed that. It was all rentals are open. However, it was just addressed that Renovation Church and Pender Parks and Rec needed answers sooner than later because they were looking to use our facilities. So all rentals are open.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Good. That addresses my concern, which was if you were picking and choosing, make sure that you're uniform and you're picking and choosing. So if it's open to everyone, the only thought I would have is ensuring that the sanitation cost quote prior to someone using your facility, they have a clear understanding of what the estimated cost would be to use your facility, including the sanitation cost, is going to be before they rent.
Yes, sir.
outside of that, I mean, you're essentially business as usual. You're not asking individual participants to sign a waiver. There's no real additional burden except for to pay the sanitation cost.
Well, as long as they, when someone wants to rent it, as long as they know what these, I don't want them to be surprised,
Exactly.
That's my concern. Because, we've got dance people and, groups like that use other facilities. And a lot of them have had a hard time, especially recently, So, we got to remember them as well. Alex, do we have any other requests in right now? It's probably been kind of slow, hasn't it?
We don't have any new requests that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. Now that I don't get ahead of myself, I guess we can go to comments.
Mr. Chairman, can I return to item number 2 for just a brief comment based on a text message I believe the board received that I was going to read aloud?
Yep. Sure.
Okay. Thank you, board members. Board, I believe there was a text message received that said from Richard Schwartz, find out if Pender wants waivers for graduates or grads and guests, period. So I will bring that forward to you. Is that something the board wishes to have graduates and guests sign individual waivers prior to these events? If so, that waiver will need to be created.
So the question is, are we going to require waivers to be signed, right?
Yes, by graduates and their guests.
Okay.
How are we gonna
So I
police,
assume that needs to be voted on, correct?
how are we gonna police that? How are we gonna, think about Topsail High. I get it, but I'm just looking logistically, how are we gonna do that?
That is, there's any number of ways. As a practical matter, the thought would be you don't get in without your waiver signed and handed to someone at the door. Now, with that being said, that is problematic. But it's a question that's been posed. So I wanted to bring it to the board.
All right. Well, it sounds like we need to specifically vote on these waivers, correct?
I don't necessarily see it as a vote. I think if the board is in favor of doing that, the thought would be to amend the plans as presented to include a waiver requirement for guests and persons. But in the event you do not want to do that, then there's no need to have a motion or a vote because the plans stand as presented and passed.
Well, I personally don't mind a waiver. I just don't want to be infringing on people's privacy and that type of thing is my concern. So, what does everyone else think?
I think the waiver is not a bad idea, but I think the execution is going to be absolutely murder.
A nightmare.
I agree with Cindy. I think it's going to be almost impossible to execute. No.
Okay. Well, so we want to just not worry about the waiver and leave the plan as is? Is that what I'm hearing? I think that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
I think so. Apparently,
That's my opinion also.
I agree, I just don't know how we
Okay.
execute it. Makes me nervous.
Okay. All right. All right. Anything else, Brandon?
No, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for entertaining my return to item 2.
Yes, sir. All right. Now for comments from board members. I appreciate everybody's patience and work and so on and so forth with all this graduation stuff, and, you know, I think everybody is well aware of that. But, we'll work things out one way or the other here. So, Ms. Burns, go ahead, please.
no comment today, other than just to thank everybody for your hard work. I know you're waiting to get I know that all of our staff is waiting to get those graduation plans going, and we're gonna have that tied down, by, I'm hoping this time on Monday. So, again, I hope you guys realize just how much work has gone into this, and that, you know, we're trying to make this the best graduation we can for you. That's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Smith?
I have no comment.
Okay. Mr. George?
I have no comment.
All right, Ms. Fontana?
I think Ms. Burns did a great job, I have no comment. It's perfect.
Okay. All right, Dr. Hill?
I just concur with what you said, Mr. Chairman. We just appreciate all the hard work everybody's doing in graduation, and the meals that are being delivered continuously as well, and just appreciate the board recognizing them and understanding just how wonderful the people are on the staff and what they're doing in this crisis for this community. We appreciate it. Appreciate everybody.
Okay. All right, anybody else before we
I make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Mr. Smith has a motion. Do we have a second?
A second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Burns has a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous.